jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Greetings, ladies and gents. We got All-Star Cast once more, because otherwise, what's the point? So, we got new to the show, Dylan Reynolds.
No worries.
Daniel on Moustachioed Podcastio. How are you?
Doing damn good, man.
And El Goro from Talk Without Rhythm.
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm stoked to talk about some Bronson.
Yes, when he's not doing his best unintentional Stallone impression. Hey, how you doing?
I didn't think I was that mush mouth, but all right. Those kind of shows. All right, let's do this.
No, you'd have to put a few more marbles. Well, not that you have marbles in your mouth already. But.
There we are.
I like El Goro's voice. I find it quite.
El Goro. Hey, I
wanna read
didn't
me a
say
book.
it was a shitty voice at all. I said it sounded like Stallone. There's a big
No, you
ass
just went the Stallone on side of things.
Now,
All
if
right.
Stallone is back to being shit voice, then yes, then I apologize. I did not mean it in that delight. I'm sorry you do not like that celebrity.
the
Don't
great
get me wrong.
start.
I absolutely love Stallone, and while
See,
his
what
voice
am
may
I
not be
talking
top
about? How did that
his voice may not
sound?
be top tier. You know, I think his talent more than speaks for itself,
Yeah,
which
but-
is good because he doesn't do a good job speaking for himself. But anyway, Bronson.
Rocky's not an action movie. Yes, it fucking is, Sly. So yeah, when Sly is not being King Contrarian, yes, he's just being himself. So, but that's okay. We're talking about a guy who pretty much is himself and everyone kind of likes. So we're going with Charlie Bronson. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm going to kill Emmett, as the Simpsons parody says. I'm going to circle around. So, Dylan, the new timers, you're all technically new timers, but I'm just going in my own bastardized order. So, when did you encounter Mr. Bronson and decide you were going to check out his movies?
Well, I thinking back, this past couple weeks, I've been going to all the major signposts in his career. And I started off with watching The Great Escape, and that was one of my dad's favorite movies. And I think that encompasses his I call it the dad trilogy. It's probably general, but there's certain
What's the remaining part of this trilogy? Because Death Wish is kind of a dad movie. So
yeah, well, I'm talking about more for boomers, or at least what my experience was. So there's the Magnificent Seven, right? Dirty Dozen and Great Escape.
oh, you just mean
Yeah.
all-star ensemble movies that you watch with your dad. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And my dad watches those all the time, especially Great Escape and Magnificent Seven. And so Charlie Bronson doesn't have huge roles in there, but they're very showy and star-making roles, I guess. You can
Still
say.
remembered, even though it's
Right.
tiny. But yeah.
So that's what I remember him more. And then of course the Canon Films period of the late '80s and the
Yeah.
80s and the super sleazy Conjite and the Death.
Oh wow, you're that specific. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, and then I guess going into the 70s, which I also watched some of. There's obviously the first Death Wish, which is probably closer to like a Taxi Driver, more of a new Hollywood thriller drama, if you think about it. Before the sequels really started, going more comic booky. but also The Mechanic and the Elmore Leonard one, Mr. Majestic, I think, where he's the watermelon farmer. Yeah.
Mhm.
So those are more gritty 70s, like those are kind of like The Getaway, you know, it's that kind of thing. So the dude has had a pretty crazy career. And I guess I knew that was the case, but I mean, going back, he was doing Twilight Zone episodes and westerns.
So gonna reference that. That's like my favorite role of his.
Right. So I guess my first experience was watching movies with my dad, and I ended up watching some of his stuff, especially those big three ensemble action things, which I think I call it the dad trilogy, because those I feel like a certain generation of kids, like their dads love those movies, so we were exposed to them that way.
That's a good point, because I mean, like, a lot of anyone who said I never saw any is like, no, bullshit. You definitely have seen them. If you didn't see them on the movie channels, you definitely saw them on AMC or TBS or something. Because just they were easy to modify, and especially those main giant ensemble movies. I mean, those get played like once a year on like Turner Classic or even PBS. Is like they're very easy to track down and mostly acceptable for most audiences. So it's like, yeah. It's pretty easy to get introduced, but that's a cool introduction. So Daniel, when did you decide, out of all the nutty movies and cult phenomena that you tackled, when did you decide you were actually a Bronson fan?
Yeah, it is kind of weird because
we had like 7 people who wanted to do this fucking episode, and like 10 others who were like, I don't know, I'm not sure my schedule. It's like I've never seen it pile up that quickly. Usually it was for like some other kind of cult actor like Michael Ironside or Lance Henriksen. It was like Charles Bronson. Everyone wanted to do Charles Bronson.
He is so like legendary, especially, and it is kind of weird because me, I was born in 85, so I missed a lot of his career. So it's been a lot of just catching up for me. And it was weird because I knew about Charles Bronson before I ever saw one of his movies, because since I was a little kid, people used to always tell me, hey, your dad looks just like Charles Bronson. And they used to always tell me that, or he looks like a Mexican Charles Bronson. Which Charles Bronson used to always get like pay, a couple of his early spots were as like Native Americans and stuff like that. Because
and Mexicans, like in Magnificent Seven, he was Bernardo.
Exactly.
Actually,
Bernardo.
I wanted to bring this up. Is your dad Robert Bronzi by any chance?
I was just about to ask that. God damn it! Why do you guys steal my questions?
No, but so I always heard this. I always heard this guy's name. Well, who's this Charles Bronson son of a bitch? And so then finally, once I was old enough to like go and get my own movies and stuff like that, like whether I was going to go rent them or I used to stop at like shops here and there. And I think when I really got into his career, because I think I saw Death, which was probably my first Bronson movie sometime in high school. And I was like, oh,
that's definitely when I saw it.
Yeah.
They're on cable TV. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And I had a good time with that one. But then I was at believe it or not, an antique expo with my ex-wife, who was my wife at the time. And we were going through a bunch of shit. I was going through a bunch of old laser discs. Must have been like sometime, 2012 or something like that. And I found like 7 or 8 laser discs of Bronson movies, kind of spanning 70s, early 80s stuff. I think even Death Wish 5 is in there. So some 90s stuff.
Oof.
I know, but believe it or not, I like his schlocky stuff. I have a damn good time with those shitty movies. I don't know. I'm one of those people. I find the fun in some films that are just a little kind of, not for everybody.
It's all right. I love all the shitty Star Trek movies. So what do I know? I mean,
yeah, there you go.
And has the death by soccer ball, right? So that's
remote control.
Death by a soccer ball. Oh my god.
Remote control.
I'll give you this. That has a dynamite cast, giving such just uninvolving acting. So it's got a great cast, and Bronson does so good trying to hide his stunt double, and by good I mean barely.
Yeah, he hardly does anything. It's
beautiful. Just walks.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. I don't know how he shows more life in those Family of Cop like TV movies that he did than he does in that one. I'm like, that says something, because
I think in that one he was like, I don't know why I'm here. I hate this. I think there was like, I know later in his career he had a lot of stipulations. I want to make sure to be driven to the set. I'm in a specific. I remember hearing some stuff about that he was getting real picky about shit.
Bill and Ted, or whatever that actor's name, not Keanu Reeves. He was in,
Winter.
Yeah, he was in Death Wish 3, and he said like
Mhm.
basically he'd be driven from his trailer to for his close up or whatever. And then,
There you go.
They drive him away. Yeah.
Then drive him right back away. He's like, and I'm done. And like, they just dump him
And
in.
I'm done. And you gotta put up with it.
Well, that's my
Um,
history with it.
That's amazing. So Goro.
Well, actually, I'm going to echo a hell of a lot of the stuff that Daniel just said, because I was also born in 1985, and so I missed, peak Bronson.
All right,
as
I was
part of it
5 years
being-
behind you.
There you go. But unlike Dylan, the Bronson films, for whatever reason, weren't things my father or stepfather introduced me to. I got a whole lot of action films from them, but for whatever reason, the Bronson flicks were never really part of that. But much like Daniel was saying, he was always part of the broader pop culture. There was always these mention of Charles Bronson. Tarantino would name drop Charles Bronson all the time. So I
Yes,
just kind
he
of got this
would.
nebulous sense of him as just this tough guy actor. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I actually started, trying to dig deeper into film. And I was watching Dirty Dozen. And then I just kept noticing this guy on there because, you go back to the films of the 60s and 70s and you got kind of the action guy physique or the action guy mode. And by modern standards, not too terribly impressive. And yet here was this guy who looked like he was chiseled out of granite, that looked like he could easily tear most of the cast members in half.
My
And I had
father
looked him
echoed
up.
the same. He's like, this guy looks like he wants to kill you with a death stare.
Exactly.
Yep.
I looked him up. Sure enough, it was Charles Bronson. I was like, okay, this is a guy I got to seek out more of. So I started seeing more of his movies. I started seeking him out. And it was when I watched Once Upon a Time in the West that it just clicked. And yeah, Bronson became my dude at that point. And I followed him throughout all the stages of his career, whether you go back to his early stuff where he's being the hero opposite Vincent Price in, Master of the World? Or you
that
go
was
in,
House of Wax or something he was in, right?
Yeah,
Well,
House
he-
of Wax.
there was another one he did where it was
He's like on a blimp and he's
It was the
exploding,
blimp.
right?
yeah, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that was it was Master of the World from '61.
Mhm.
And then you
Nice.
get into his
You can still see it
awesome
on
gritty-
MGM HD. It's
Yeah, there you go. You can go into his awesome gritty 70s work, the canon era stuff where the quality of the movies kind of went down, but they had a certain charm all their own. Bronson was just this presence that just kept doing his thing and kept being quintessentially him. Not all of his movies were great, but he brings a quality to them that makes them very watchable.
Oh, totally. And I mean, I'm not even surprised how many people kind of echo a lot of his kind of acting choices. Like, I mean, you look at today's badasses like Frank Grillo and Carl Urban and even tired Bruce Willis is like, they totally are in that same kind of 70s tough guy mentality, which is just, and I mean, I think that's even the second, or so we say, third stage of both Jason Statham and Liam Neeson's career. They're pretty much doing those kinds of movies, which is just no bullshit, just over the top, over stylized, assassin, anti-hero, gun for hire, or badass, Secret Service agent, something,
Yeah, and there's
I-
kind of only room for one. Like it seems like they, like there wasn't another
Yeah.
Charles Bronson for a while, but yeah, now Liam Neeson's taken that mantle and
100%.
he's going with
Because
it.
Palance was kind of doing that, but no
Yep.
one was watching his gritty, mostly, movies that he would just walk in the middle of, and he's not even the star. And,
He's like, "Sup, everybody."
right, and I think that is cool. I do think you guys are on the money. He somehow had a way of still kind of. I think I don't know if other than that cartoon, if even though everyone kind of knew he was a nice guy, like I've heard several people have spotted him saying hi to pals in like Atlanta and Dallas, Texas, of all fucking places. It's just like he has been seen around, and often he's like a giant teddy bear, like he's just always comforting everybody. And so it's just so funny how, again, it's just like he was just kind of reminding everyone that a lot of the ones who are the likable guy or is often the jerk behind the set, and the guy playing the badass or the heavy or the anti-hero is often the coolest person ever who would never want to do anything remotely that
They don't need to
represents an
prove
NRA
anything
commercial.
to people, right? Because they already look like badasses, so they don't need to.
Yeah, acting.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, revisiting all those movies and what made him so iconic, or what kind of category to put him in. But I was thinking about he just kind of represented masculinity for that time and era, like to the point of, you think about Humphrey Bogart or John Wayne. Like, even if people haven't seen their movies necessarily, but they can see the image and know what it's about. And I think
1,000%, because like he sucked it up in anything for the most part. He pretty much is like, you never heard anything about him arguing with a director or anything. It seemed like, he, much like Cagney, he knew how to stand, and much like Bogart, he would rather be doing something else besides all the heavy roles, and yet just said, okay, well, it's just the way things are. So, And
have you ever seen his Mandem commercials?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I have, but
Mandem.
Mandem. Yeah, it was this Japanese aftershave in the 70s. And
okay. I heard he did some Japanese work.
It is, but you were talking about how he's this figure, this of manliness, of masculinity, and I mean to the point where he promoted something called Mandem.
Mandem, yeah. And I think, like you guys were summing up with Canada stuff, he pretty much just summed up the beat picture, because he's already been doing 50s, 60s, and 70s equivalent of those. It's like, hey, this is a drive-in movie, and so
he had an interesting career, because he did a lot of like TV and then some of these ensemble things in like the 50s and 60s. And he did like one starring role. I think his first starring role was the Roger Corman Machine Gun Kelly movie. Which is interesting, because if you watch some Roger Corman movies from the era, it's like, the giant crab monsters or whatever. But
yes.
But I watched Machine Gun Kelly as part of my.
Who's this Charles Bukowski guy? Don't you mean Mr. Bronson? Yes, that is.
But
me, Mr. Bronson.
It's a pretty good movie for Roger Corman's career at that point, because he was doing more of that stuff, and it actually kind of foretells more like the 70s take on the 30s gangster movies.
1,000%. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, because he kind of plays like kind of a snivelly bastard in it. And I think I read somewhere that one of the reasons Roger Corman didn't like gangsters or glorifying gangsters, so that's one of the reasons he did it. But kind of almost makes it pretty modern in that sense. I think it was like the 50s that he did Machine Gun Kelly.
It's very interesting how he would always work those in. Like, each time Corman wanted to do kind of something that would be progressive, like he wanted to do one thing about some black activists, and he just couldn't ever find a market for it. So yeah, he would always pretty much, that was the only compromise. I'm going to make something to steal the money that, 40s Scarface is making, but, or Asphalt Jungle, but I'm going to do it, in a little small subtle way. I'll literally just change the plot twist, and that's all I need. And I'll just have a great likable actor playing a terrible person. And so I still get their fans, but they get to challenge themselves as an actor, and I get the last word, because yes, like you say, I'm going to see an awful shithead get gunned down at the end.
Right. It's an interesting thing of looking back at some of Bronson's 50s work, because it was him sort of going against our perception of him, of this kind of stoic man of few words that would typify so many of his later career. I mean, one of the more interesting ones was the TV show he did, Man with a Camera, which they actually have all the episodes on YouTube, so you can go and check them out. He was
Did you see how they edit like 2 episodes of it together and made like a feature?
Yeah, so do stuff like that in order to put it out on cheapo releases. But he was the loquacious leading man in those, and it is kind of weird to go back and see him trying to fit into that mold, and how much that typifies a lot of his career, until all of a sudden people just realize, hey, if we put him in this role where he doesn't have to talk about a lot, not that he can't, because he was a decent enough actor in his time, and when he is called upon to deliver dialogue, he can do it with a fair amount of unconventional conviction and presence that was very, very different from a lot of leading men at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him put into the fast talker, smooth guy, it was interesting to go back and watch that period and contrast that to, I don't know, harmonica from Once Upon a Time in the West. Right?
Yeah,
all like 15 words in that entire movie.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that he was almost supposed to be in A Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I'm like, you know what? I'm glad he didn't keep doing just Italian stuff. I'm glad he came back here and we kept seeing him in our eyesights at all times. Because I think that's just it. It's like, unless you were like in a Giallo or a bunch of just above average spaghetti westerns, you kind of just got ignored. Everyone was just I call it the Telly Savalas effect, where you're just like, you'll always be Kojak, and the rest of the time you're just gonna pop up in obscure TV movies.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of the assumption is Bronson didn't become like a leading man star until the 70s when he did like the first Death Wish, but he actually had to basically go to Italy. It was a lot like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Leonardo DiCaprio's career trajectory, where he's doing a lot of TV and stuff, but he had to be a lead, he had to go to like Italy basically and do westerns and become more of a star out there before really actually blowing up. I think he was in his 50s when he did Death Wish even.
Something like that, yeah.
So it was kind of interesting like that. And actually you mentioned Jalos. He did one because I was trying to hit all the major films. I read some things, and one of his favorite movies he said was Rider on the Rain, which I never heard of.
I've heard the title, but it's been a minute.
It's kind of interesting. It's got like a Hitchcockian European kind of flavor to it, where a woman is attacked and raped, and she kills the guy, and he plays like an investigating detective, but you think he's kind of a jerk, but not. It's very especially for early 70s, or maybe that one was late 60s.
Oh, he did that with his wife. Is she playing the battered, abused?
No, I think she plays a different role in that actually. But that was like one of 12 he did with Ireland.
The Doors song of the same name was influenced by this. Oh my god.
Yeah. So
I've not seen this.
So if you haven't, especially if you're used to like the stoic, vigilante kind of Bronson around that era, that's an interesting one to watch. And I read somewhere it was one of his favorite movies, and he tried to remake it with Cannon actually.
That would have been awesome.
Interesting too,
or even a parody version.
Yeah, much more trashy probably, but it would have been awesome, I think. But so yeah, that one's pretty interesting. I also watched it was Red Sun, which is
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, the cast is just Toshiro Mifune, so you got the samurai stuff, and you got Alain de Leon, the French Gaelic gangster guy. It's directed by what's his name, Terrence Young, right? Who did Dr. No and From Russia with Love and all that. So you would think the movie would be like this greatest thing ever. It's not quite that, but it's still pretty interesting, and just the fact that it was like an Expendables of like the spaghetti westerns or something, It's just like
I enjoyed it on the third viewing, but it is a very slow one that a lot of people dismiss because
it's a little
there's
slow.
just so many better East and West movies. But I think, like you say, it is kind of going for that whole. This is where the 70s would sneak in. Hey, you liked them a decade earlier doing these kinds of roles before homages were becoming popular.
Well, I just also appreciated it because it was acknowledging the fact that so many of the classic westerns during this time period were drawing so heavily from the Japanese samurai tradition. And so it made a hell of a lot of sense just to take, the king of the Jedi Geki films, Toshiro Mifune, and then putting him in a film with Bronson. And then we got Alain Delon on there on top, and the great Ursula Andress.
Oh, yeah.
So, I love Red Sun. No apology.
Oh, yeah. She's great. But, yeah.
But it's one of those, like, I'm not trying to diss it or anything, too, but it's one of those movies like, oh, how can this not be the greatest film ever made? And it's like, yeah, it's fine.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean,
it's acceptable. It's not going to blow everyone away, but I on the third viewing, I think it also is just one of those, it's kind of a more low-key party movie as opposed to one of the bigger extravaganzas he's in.
No, yeah.
Right. It's worth checking out if you're a cult movie person, for sure,
Yeah, you put on something like Kinjite at a party. You don't put on Red Sun.
Ooh, well, I mean...
Forbidden subjects.
Make sure your girlfriends aren't there,
Depends on your girlfriend.
I mean, if she's into exploitation and horror, maybe she might like it. But it is funny.
If your girlfriend's Asian, maybe don't put on Kinjite.
Fair enough.
It's one of those movies I watched it the other night, and this is how I did. I watched it with some Coppola wine, and my wife.
Oh my god!
I watched this sleazy fucking film by myself. And
I had that one. That's one of the ones I have on Laserdisc, by the way, Kinjite.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Forbidden subjects.
That's apparently a Tarantino favorite, I guess.
Well, why wouldn't it be? It has food in it.
Yep. Yep. I gotta say, I do have a good time with that one too, but it's just because it's just such a sleazeball movie.
Oh
and
God,
It's
yeah.
so racist too. Like,
super
you know,
racist.
the movie's racist. I'm not racist, but a literal line is.
I didn't say you were racist, but you got to decline.
Got a qualifier.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
some Oriental guy touching in the holiest of holies. That's an actual line of dialogue.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that is a lot of the lines.
And he yells at all the Asian people at one part. It's just like, what is going on here?
Oh, he
Yeah,
doesn't call
and
them
he-
slurs, does
and
he? Or does he
he's-
just...
He sticks a dildo up a dude's ass.
Yeah.
That's what I remember it for. I don't remember any of the other stuff, but I've definitely seen that clip, and it's like, that's fucking amazing. That's
It's the film that gave us the immortal screenshot of Bronson holding a dildo.
And yet, Death Wish
That's the
2
first
got
2
an
minutes
X
of the
rating in
movie.
this Cynic.
It starts off with him sodomizing a suspect, man. Like,
Yeah.
That's stellar.
They
But how the hell did this not get an X rating, and yet Death Wish 2 did?
Ah, Lord knows.
I know, it's weird.
Hey,
That is
happy,
weird.
Death Wish 2 came out in February of 1982, so happy 40th anniversary to that wonderful.
Oh, nice.
Ah.
Larry Fishburne being
Wish 2.
creepy and
It's
Bronson
like-
blasting away Victor Argo. And I'm sorry, Victor Argo, he may be a reasonable actor, but even when I would see him on, say, a more respectable fare like Law and Order or just Larry comedy, I'd be like, hey, isn't that the asshole gets blasted in Death Wish 2?
Well, that was the great thing about the Death Wish franchise. For a while, they had this streak of before they were famous guys popping up. in
Danny
Death Wish
Trejo
movies.
gets
Yeah.
blown up
You
in
got
part
Jeff
4.
Jeff Goldblum in the first one.
Goldblum
And then you got Larry Fishburne, and they got Alex Winter. You know, they had a nice run.
You
Oh,
believe in
yeah.
dildos.
does have Danny
Kill the
Trejo.
Giggler, man.
That's true.
Yeah. So
Miguel Sandoval's in part 5. I'm like, oh man, how his career took off with Clear and Present Danger, but not that one. Oh man. And it is kind of interesting. It's like you kind of get a feel for it's also, like you say, fun to see which ones kind of stuck with those roles for a while playing gangbangers and which ones actually got away from it and got to play like the ambassador or the cop, you know.
I don't think any actor goes in wanting to play rapist number 2 for the rest of their career.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you just say, hey, you know, I do what I do, and that's what I got.
Honestly, when I rewatched Death Wish 1 and 2, I fast forwarded through the rape scenes. I was
That's
like,
fair.
No, you don't. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
You mean slow motion?
no one said you did, and now I'm thinking you're just making all these disclaimers.
Especially part 2. That's got to go on for like 10 minutes, man. Like
Part 2, the opening. Which part is it? Is it part 2 or part? I can't remember which part where the opening is takes place in a parking garage, and
I
think,
think that's part 2.
and he's
No,
having
That
a
sounds
nightmare.
like something.
that's
part
4
2
where he
would
just
have.
appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, it might be
That's
4.
4.
Yeah,
There's
I
more
rewatched
commercials
all
that
of them,
play
so.
during part 2 on TV, so it's got to be that one. Do you believe in Jesus? Blam.
yeah.
But yeah,
they would play these on like KTLA Channel 5 out here, you know, so they would edit them for TV at some point. I can't imagine a Death Wish 2 edited for TV. It's like,
AMC they definitely did. You pretty much see all the gun splats, but you don't see like half the, you know, when the daughter commits suicide and commits impalement.
Right.
Yeah, you don't see all that other shit. But yeah, there are more commercials during it.
I mean, he can't go and kill people if a family member hasn't been brutally raped and murdered.
Wronged and everything. And
Yeah.
so it made sense to me when I saw all these other people trying to take it on who were, you know, regular actors like Kevin Bacon, Bruce Willis. Is like, yeah, 'cause
Yeah, I know.
Basically, Bronson was basically an actor who happened to be muscular, and because he had the look, everyone wanted to see him playing a soldier. And it's just so funny. He's in so many World War II and movies that you're just like, did he actually serve? Like all these other guys are like, nope, not a single day in any kind of service, but he might as
I thought
well
he got
have.
He was in the
Who?
army.
He
Yeah,
was?
in the
Talking about
army.
Bronson?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bronson was in World War II. He was
He was in World War II? Oh,
was a
okay, I
ship
see it
gunner on
now.
a flying fortress.
He got a
got-
Purple Heart. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that,
fuck.
he's of that generation that was, you know,
I
they
didn't
didn't
see
they
it.
didn't play war. They actually went to war.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
the greatest generation, man. He kind of represented that. That's also one of the things I think
I'm
why
a
you
fucking
appeal
idiot.
to
It's
our
all right.
dad, you know, or soon
So am I.
boomers, you know, because
Then why does no one talk about it? Because like
I
everybody
think it's
else
just because
fucking
he didn't make a big deal about it. You know,
Yeah.
it was just one of
Yeah.
those things.
he
that,
didn't glamorize or act like the poster boy.
And he
didn't wanna
actually
be
he was really private. He rarely did interviews or anything like that.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the stuff about his life was found out way later, either just before he died or after he died when they were able to learn a little bit more about him. But yeah, he always seemed very private, which is understandable. I mean, he comes from a much different, like y'all said, he comes from a much different background, and where it wasn't all about glitz and glamour and everything like that. The guy was, I think he's known for, like, he had to wear a dress one time to school because he just literally didn't have any clothes to wear.
Yeah. I mean,
something like that.
Came up.
That sounds amazing. I can imagine the playground. Hey, don't say anything about
he
me.
came up in a Lithuanian, Pennsylvania town, and he was basically, his father died young. He had to go to work in the mines when he was 10. I mean, he was working in the office, but shortly after that, he was busting down mines with his brother when he was probably barely a teenager. And then when he was early 20s, boom, off to war.
I read that and was impressed because I think that's just it. He comes from the grateful generation, grateful to be alive, grateful to breathe, grateful to put any kind of anything on the table. And I think, like you say, he wanted to have a life, and somehow someone must have just politely just said, okay, well, so just have the poster sell everything. You know, he doesn't have to do Letterman or, you know.
I think that goes a long way into speaking why he ended up taking as many different roles as he did, because you do kind of get the sense that for certain things, it was just a job. It was a thing he
keep
did,
working.
and he's gonna put his head down and do it. And you know, we can laugh at the fact that later on in his career, he was, you know, had to be driven to go do his close up. But by that point, after all that he had been through and all the terrible films he had, I think he earned it. You know?
And plus, driving someone to set is nothing compared to, you know, arguing.
A lot of other people,
shouting at your cinematographer, you know, I'm going with that, and, or just, you know, telling the makeup person they're ugly and that they should not be here. You know, you're never gonna. He would be caught dead if just telling a waiter, you know, you don't earn your tip, or just, you know, not going to someone's, you know, college, you know, graduation. You know, he's just, like you say, just private guy. You always heard he was a good family guy, and I think that's just it. He just commanded respect just by being just above average behind the scenes and doing pretty much what he was promised that he would be doing in a film, whether it was being just, I mean, you even see just some casual comedies and romantic dramas that he's in, and it's like, okay, but that made sense. They were looking for someone who had that kind of look at that time. And you even see that overseas he had like a Henrietta Award for World Film Favorite along with Sean Connery. So I'm like, that's kind of a similar. I do think he was kind of in the same realm as kind of Connery, where he's just like, hey, is like, and I think he kind of had that just as like, if you hate me, I don't really care, but I'm also not going to suck either, you know?
Well, actually, as I said, I tried to watch a lot of his movies throughout his career, and you know, we talked about a lot of his like sleepwalking days through the Cannon films, you know, but I watched, I think it was like one of his last theatrical films. It was called Indian Runner, which was Sean Penn.
It's a great movie. It's actually like, maybe, I want to say the 5th movie I saw him in. I'd seen all the Death Wishes and obviously, you know, had forgotten, but knew he was in, you know, Great Escape and some of and Magnificent Seven. But yeah, I was like, that one was like, for a final role, I mean, damn. I mean,
it was interesting to see too, because I'd watched all these other ones, which are like, you know, a little bit more, whatever the word is, racist, reactionary. But in that one, he plays like this older dad. He even shaves off his mustache, so it's like a different Bronson almost. But he's like talking, at one point he's talking about his son about, you know, sorry, I wasn't supportive of you when you wanted to marry your Mexican wife, and now I know she's a good person. And this is a very touching performance, actually. It's a small role, but it's he's actually showing more work there than he was with maybe some of the Death Wish sequels. So he definitely still had it in him, you know.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned Congetti. He's pretty energetic in that, and he'd already done.
Well, yeah.
He'd already done.
I'm sorry. Kinjite. Let's
Kinjite. Since I
think we have 3 different
to
pronunciations
my fucking life,
so.
But yeah. But I mean, Assassination, he pretty much just lets the movie carry him. But Messenger of Death and The Evil That Men Do, you kind of get a feel that he's really motivated by it, because at least, I mean, he's already done those serial killer movies like 10 to Midnight and Murphy's Law, but you know, but when he gets to those 2 movies, Messenger of Death and Evil That Men Do, he's pretty much just, okay, so you're playing a guy who's just standing up. And I really love The Evil That Men Do, because not enough people talk about this, but I saw one book journalists note that it kind of feels like a subtle Magnificent Seven homage. Is like, well, that makes sense. There is a village defense near the end, even though it's a modern day.
There is, yeah.
And
Plus, he was working with a director that he really liked, J. Lee Thompson, who he had done a lot of movies with.
Yeah,
and
Navarone, and for the rest of his life, he pretty much does all these TV movies and low-budget canon films, and it's like,
That's a fascinating director. He did Happy Birthday to Me too. So he did like a slasher movie. He did like a couple Planet of the Apes movies. He
did an early Sharon
helped.
Tate movie called Eye of the Devil, which was just weird.
Oh, wow.
well, and that's just it. I think Thompson was the same guy. You look at Richard Fleischer as a comparison, and he was kind of just way too workmanlike, and so it wasn't a surprise that his movies just varied by good Irwin Allen to versus bad Irwin Allen type movies. And it was like with Thompson, I think he pretty much just realized it was like, okay, I'm gonna make a giant spectacle piece regardless of what money you give me.
I mean, the Evil That Men Do like opens up with a guy getting his balls electrocuted. I mean, holy shit.
And yet at the same time, there's this weird kind of savage sense of humor to that film. As dark and as twisted as it gets, you cannot help but laugh at that scene where Bronson's trying to seduce the guy into a threesome.
Wait. Whoa. Wait. What version of the movie did you watch?
Yes.
Wait, what version? Is this after the bar
super
fight?
Tall dude.
Yeah, he was trying to get the super tall Indian guy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was
that scene at all, and I just
that's in there.
This is the Evil That Men Do you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that bar scene. It's just before.
I haven't seen Messenger of Death too. You said that one was good?
Yeah, it's just another kind of conspiracy thriller where a mix of environmental terror and just
so it's
landowners
his
being
ground
greedy.
or whatever that Seagal one is.
A little bit.
That minus the Michael Caine and Seagal being Seagal, but yeah, it's
close.
It's like if
more
it were done
Mormons.
well, yes, that's
Messenger of
well.
Death.
So I will have to see the Evil That Men Do. I don't remember this.
Yep, there's totally a scene.
I remember there are
Bronson's
plenty of
trying to
other
set up a
risque
threesome.
moments, but Jesus,
But
and is this in the
and he-
middle of the movie? Where is this?
And he kills that guy by just squeezing his dick.
Yes, right.
Death by
Why do I
death
not
by dick
remember
squeeze.
this? I remember every other fatality, especially.
I'm the same way. I think I've seen this before, but I don't remember any of what you guys are talking about. So I have to,
Did
might
I
hurt my
get cut
handle
from
if
my?
I talk to movies. I don't know.
So is it after the bar scene, or is it when he's out in the street getting spied on? I'm sorry, I just.
Oh, you know what? We saw the porno version, the fucking that men do.
Oh yeah, the fucking women. That's right.
I'm about to say, good God, I don't recall.
No, I
that.
swear to God, it's in the movie, dude. You gotta.
Yes.
I have seen it.
I don't know, man. Maybe I'm thinking-
when does it happen?
Okay, so I found the synopsis.
Is it
while
after
he's
the
at
showering
bar-
scene? Or
While he's off at the bar, a local begins harassing somebody. Bronson crushes his groin and neck to a cheering crowd.
well, no,
And
I
then
remember that scene, but you're talking about this other-
Bronson and then Teresa Saldana trick the man into returning to their hotel for a threesome, and Holland kills him by throwing a knife into his neck.
That's how they kills that guy when they kills her.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah,
That's how
but
they got him over there.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're
Okay.
like, hey,
but
let's have a
the
threesome.
way you're describing it was making me think. Wait, whoa! When did this become?
He
And
had
it's
to
just-
seduce a dude by
He had to
offering a
seduce him.
threesome.
Yeah, it's super interesting. See Bronson be like, "Hey, Bucko."
Want to tag team this lady?
to be fair,
But again,
to be
it speaks,
fair,
it
just
speaks to the fact that he was friends with J. Lee Thompson, that he was willing to do that kind of thing, which
Yeah.
totally would have thrown in the face, his tough guy stoic persona. So there's a savage sense of humor to the Evil That Men Do that I really appreciate.
and you
And
can
they
take
did that-
it. You
They
can
did
take
10 to
it.
Midnight together too, right? Him and Thompson.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
And
I
you
really
can
like
take it
that one.
straight face versus lowbrow. While it, like you say, it was getting lampooned as a lowbrow, cashing in on the Death Wish type stuff. And like you say, is like all these movies, they're really no different than typical 60s or 70s movies. It's just they just had like maybe one or two extra
extra.
scenes that went a little too far that would have been, denied any theater release. So it is kind of cool, like you say. He's doing Thompson and him are kind of used to this kind of stuff. It's just they're getting away with a little more stuff, and they weren't worried.
I
Is
really
10
like 10 to Midnight because that fits into what I call slasher action movies. So there's like Cobra and Silent Rage, the one with
Norris.
With Norris fighting Michael Myers, right? So
Yeah.
Is 10 to
Midnight's
Midnight?
the closest he did to a slasher movie.
Is that the one where he goes, "It's for jacking off"?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
And another sex toy dildo.
He's grabbed a lot of sex toys in his
You can cite this as the movie that basically gave Dallas turned Franchise Pictures producer Andrew Stevens giant head. He's like, hey, I'm in movies. I should become a giant movie producer like Canon Films.
Yeah.
And hey, if we're going to be talking about Bronson J. Lee Thompson collaborations, we would be totally remiss if we didn't bring up White Buffalo.
Hey, I saw that one
Oh
too.
my god, yes. And that's basically Death Wish in a desert.
Well,
With
it's
a
actually
giant
more like Jaws.
giant
It's,
ass buffalo.
Jaws, except
It's totally Jaws with a buffalo, yeah.
it's so good.
But what's the other one though, where he's basically getting terrorized and having a face off with Native Americans or something?
Oh,
It must have been Cabo Blanco, I think. No, that's the noir. What's the other one?
Shanto or something?
Yes,
was it
that's
Chino?
the one. Shanto.
Yeah, I didn't
yes.
watch Shanto on this revisit.
It's
that's
brutal,
supposed to be
dude.
fun.
And after a while, you're not even sure if you really like it, but you stick with it because, like you say, he commands your attention. And I mean, what you guys
I've
have
never
all
seen that one.
and I would get it mixed up with the White Buffalo, and then I was like, wait, no, I haven't even fucking seen the White Buffalo. I've seen Shanto because it came out around the same time. But yeah, it's like,
Yeah, trust me. If you've seen the White Buffalo, you will never forget it. Just with the gigantic buffalo that's involved and the insanity of that
big-ass
film.
buffalo.
It's a huge buffalo.
It's designed by the guy who did the King Kong, the 70s King Kong too. So it's like
I'm sure.
It's both ridiculous and cheesy, but also kind of trippy, so it kind of works too. I don't know.
It helps when you have an actor who has a straight face, so then you're just not encouraged to even mock him like you would anyone else who's just looks like they just don't know what to make of it. You know?
Right.
I'm definitely covering that one for the Podcastio, dude.
Oh,
'cause-
there's definitely a lot of mustache action. I take it. Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Western creature feature. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Years
Oh,
before
shit.
Snakes on a Plane and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, everybody. I'm Charles Bronson. I'm your passenger on this plane. There's lots of snakes on
Was that the first movie he did with Thompson?
No, I think the first one they did was St. Ives.
Ooh,
Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that
that
one
was
gets
great.
shat on a lot. I wanted to get your guys' takes. I found it watchable, but I need to rewatch it. I don't.
It's more of a comedy or like comedy action or
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
like everyone would. It seemed like everyone who reviewed it just isn't all that big a fan of noirs, and I mean, I didn't take it any differently, like from Noon Till Free, which was a Western parody he was in, and I mean, if you've seen You Can't Win Them All, which is hard to come by, but totally worth it. I mean, that one, he had a lot of dry but amusing one-liners in an otherwise fun, war adventure movie, and it was basically his Kelly's Heroes, let's put it that way. But it's like, yeah, it's like he has all these just subtle just comedies here and there, and I mean, once again, Cabo Blanco is a tribute to Casablanca. This is like, I think for someone who is just willing to go there, that demands some kind of respect. And I mean, even when you're watching these, Family of Cops, let's not deny it. Those are basically NYPD Blue homicide, episodes with Bronson playing a family of cops. But and I'm not doing that to shit on it. It's like that's basically just what they were. It's just fun, acceptable TV fare. But when you get to Donato and Daughter, it's like I felt like that was his last attempt at doing a Death Wish kind of movie.
Yeah.
Where he and
Which
Dan
one?
Delaney are playing just again a lieutenant daughter and a sergeant dad, and going after a serial killer. It came out in around like 93.
By the way, kind of crazy about that St. Ives is that Jeff Goldblum actually reprises the crazy street punk from Death Wish
Really?
in a
Yes.
cameo. Yeah.
Did he have his was it the jester hat or whatever he had on? was Archie, right? Archie Jughead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and when you
Jughead.
see that, you're looking back and you're like, whoa, is this by Michael Winter? No, it's by J. Lee Thompson. Okay.
And you also realize Jeff Goldblum's character never. That's what's weird about Death Wish. He never kills those guys that
Nope,
killed his
never finds
wife.
He doesn't actually get revenge. He just it's that's why I compared more to Taxi Driver. It's more like watching a serial killer movie or something like
Yeah, I just guy that just sort of lost it.
And it actually
think
speaks
so.
to kind of the early themes that were even in the Death Wish novel that just kind of got removed from the series as it turned into more of a action spectacle. The idea of kind of the pointlessness of vengeance, the fact that
But at least they don't pretend to be social commentary. But it's like compared to Dirty Harry, which has an identity crisis years before we had other franchises that
sure, but
hit
it's the idea that even the original writer of Death Wish didn't like the direction that it went in. But you can go back to that original one, and you do get some elements of that cathartic, of fighting back against the crime. But it's a much darker film that really just kind of doesn't come to a strong conclusion other than the fact that at the end of the day he's just killing just to kill. He doesn't get the people that hurt his family. He doesn't really change anything. He's just gonna keep killing.
It did have a good, like you say, quality about it in that it wanted to be more plausible as opposed to, nowadays everyone has the phone book out. I will find you. And it's like, it doesn't, you've already lost any believability whatsoever. You gotta, it's better if you detail all the various gangs or have someone who's got like a reporter or cop friend who can do some profiling, and then, they take it upon themselves to go all vigilante. But yeah, I understand its influence and how he also just couldn't escape it. And I also, at the same time, could you see anyone else in that role?
No.
I don't know.
Danny DeVito.
Bruce Willis a couple years ago.
Oh God!
in the first Death Wish, you could almost see other people from the 70s do that kind of thing, because Kersey was meant to be just kind of this everyman. He wasn't anything particularly special. He was he was described as a retiring liberal, and so you could almost see even somebody like John Cassavetes do the role.
Cassavetes would have been great. Hell, he would have been great as the main bad guy too.
Sure. You put Cassavetes pretty much anywhere, and he's going to
Rosemary's Death Wish. Oh, yeah.
Well, it is kind of interesting. Death Wish is kind of known, especially the series, but the first one's kind of known as this action thing, kind of along with Dirty Harry, maybe, that it influenced kind of like the 80s shoot 'em up movies.
Sure.
But the actual movies themselves, when you watch them, have much more to do with like 70s New Hollywood, I think, than what the guy involved to. It's kind of like similar to I correlate Rambo 2 to compared to Death Wish a little bit, as far as like the first one is more of a drama, right? Or it's an actual
there's endless views of the ocean and getting comfy with the spouse, and it's like
it kind of evolves into this comic book thing. And also like with Rambo 2 and like Death Wish, it kind of spoke to this thing in the culture, whether it be right-wing politics or people upset about the crime rates or upset about communism or the Vietnam War or whatever, and kind of gets all filtered through these movies, and they kind of grow into their own interpretations that weren't necessarily in the text,
Yeah, it's the idea that, Rambo 2, to your point, is basically we're going to refight Vietnam and we're going to win this time. In the case of the subsequent Death Wish movies, it was basically, Greatest Generation and also the Ascendant Yuppies getting to win against urban blight.
Right. That's true.
Completely ignoring the point of urban blight and why it was all coming around. They were just shooting people.
Oh yeah, the author hated those movies, but that totally on your point, Dylan. It was definitely minus the jingoism. It was basically speaking to the Reagan era, as well as just people who just wanted an everyday kind of just fight back. Just easygoing testosterone, as opposed to nowadays you see so many movies, they'll try and incorporate like a message, and it doesn't feel like it lands completely well, because it just, by the time it's makes it to the screen, it's gone for too many rewrites, or it comes out a decade too late. So it's
a painting, everyone's going to have their own interpretation. Even junkie action movies have that too,
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's the thing you forget even about a film like Delta Force. That had a hell of a lot of messaging behind it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think Bronson, though, if anything, he gives Canon a way too much credit than it actually deserves, for a studio that was making,
sure,
rip-off movies and doing Norse films. Is like he was just basically showing, hey, the old school guys got it good too. You can guess.
Well,
all these
you seem
guys.
to just have his own little corner in canon. You know, he would just do his movies every year or two. You know, where he's the copper vigilante, and they just kind of cranked him out. You know?
Yep. The pillars of canon were the two Chucks.
Yeah, I read some interview where basically they would have all these action scripts come in. They would throw in a Chuck pile or a Charles pile. You know.
And I mean, you got to commend him. I mean, you were mentioning Terrence Young. I like it that he got to work with him on Cold Sweat, and that's basically his transporter.
He did Red Run too. I think he did like 4 movies with Terrence Young, like when he was
Yeah.
over in Italy and Europe doing all.
Well, and that's just it. Young is just like Fletcher and Thompson, just one of those guns for hire, literally. And Bronson literally is an actor for hire, a gun acting for hire. And I think, I mean, you can't say he hasn't worked with some great guys. I mean, he's worked with Sidney Pollack and Francis Ford Coppola on the
and Leone, you know. So
yeah. And, But I mean, those guys, you know, he was working on a stage play of Tennessee Williams. So people definitely saw some kind of dramatic, you know, theater range to him.
Yeah.
And I think it just was one of those, I mean, you see people do it now. I mean, like we were mentioning Robert Bronson earlier. Robert Bronson, I have seen at a convention when Death Kiss, that parody question mark came out of. It was like
Bronsploitation,
right? So
Yeah, totally.
Bronsploitation.
And I can't blame people for wanting to, again, kind of copy the Taken Expendables method of doing a big throwback to earlier decades of old school action. And I think at the same time, I can understand why that stuntman has wanted to make all these B pictures that are referencing all these kinds of cult movies, and because he clearly kept getting mistaken for Mr. Bronson. And he's like, well, that's fine, because so why did I build my career on his, you know?
it's one of those the Robert Bronson situation is one of those weird like success stories, I guess you would call it at this point. But he's basically carving his own, you know, Bronson ripoff subgenre, you know, just
Yeah, kind of like the mini
what's-
Bruce Lee's.
right. I watched Cry Havoc actually last night, so that was like my end of my Bronson, you know, revisiting all these movies. But
Man,
Cry
you went to
Havoc is
town.
like, it's basically like, hey, let's get Bronson versus Jason Voorhees, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, sure, why not? And for the most part, for what Cry Havoc is, and that second half, it kind of delivers on that, you know, and it's entertaining. And I don't know if that means if that's so much it's Bronson's iconography that we're responding to, or if it's just this particular case where this guy looks like Bronson, so it just happens to fit, or if people really just want more of Charles Bronson. I don't know.
I think it's a bit of everything. Either way, it's free advertising. So for the idiots who didn't know he's been a long time dead, you know, it's an instant win. For the ones who just want to see a fun, over-the-top B picture, they'll eat it up. I haven't been able to watch many of Rene Perez's movies, but I like how Bronson is finally getting away from him and making his own stuff. Like, he has this one called like Assault on Block 13, which is like his assault on Precinct 13 in a prison tribute.
Yeah, I was on Tubi. It was between that one or Cry Havoc. I went with Cry Havoc. I want to see Jason versus Bronson a little bit more. But...
At least you didn't see Once Upon a Time in Deadwood.
Oh, okay.
Which is basically, you know, it has nothing to do with Deadwood, but it's also just interesting in that it just looks like no one's in the same shot. And
One of those
overexposed lighting, so it hurt my eyes just watching any of it. And I know Rene Perez, anytime he's been asked if anyone wants to review his movies, he goes by the whole, you know, any attention is good attention. It's like, well, what if you asked, you know, me to put this on your DVD? I don't care. Just glad you reviewed it.
Well, I have to say Cry Havoc, I will say, like, the first half or so, first hour, maybe a little rough, but I really enjoyed it the second half. And we kind of got into, like, the whole slasher action thing, because I think the slasher movie and the action movie of the 80s, you know, are very much brothers.
Mhm.
And it kind of, by mashing those two together, I think he showed that those are, you know, the only difference between a slasher movie or like a shoot 'em up action movie is you're rooting for the hero you're supposed to be instead of a slasher movie. But
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
yeah.
And
I had
truthfully,
fun with Cry Havoc, you know, for what it is, for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
have to check
that's good
that
to
one out.
hear, because anybody that I've talked to who have watched the Robert Bronson movies have said nothing but negative things about it. So I've avoided them to this point, because I'm a Bronson fan, but to me, it's more than just the look. That even in his, you know, more disposable movies, he has a presence. And it's an understated presence, but it's a presence nonetheless. And if somebody's
100%.
not bringing that to the picture, as I heard Bronzy wasn't really doing, it didn't have much interest in me. At some point, it's inevitable. I will see these movies. And Cry Havoc, yeah, that's probably the one I'm going to go with because
he's
the
getting
idea
better because
Bronson versus Jason. Okay, I'm a mark enough. I'm going to do that one. But
well, he's now in a movie called The Gardener with B action martial artist Gary Daniels, and but much like Bronson, I mean, it kind of makes sense. He's being constantly mistaken for the guy in public, and he has a long way to go before any kind of acting. But I do find it interesting that, you know, once you get past the whole stuntman thing, he's worked as a musician, also served in the military, and was a carpenter and a horse trainer. So it's like, yeah, he's
pretty similar background, and he's Hungarian or something too. I think.
He was pretty nice at the panel I saw him at.
That's good. At no point will I begrudge the guy for his career. I mean,
well, and I think he knows
genius move.
Well, and
he knows he's a stunt, you know, basically like he's.
Like you say, he leaves a lot to be desired, but I think he's going to keep growing. I think because he's now writing and doing his own thing, I think he's much like Bronson. He's doing the whole make it or break it. Just keep trying something new.
Is there an actor that
one was pretty good?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You said that Assault one's pretty good. The Assault on, was it Precinct 13, but not?
Assault on Block 13 or whatever. Yeah, that's apparently pretty good. I saw just a clip and I was impressed with what I saw as opposed to too cheap. You know, like some of Dolph Lundgren's lesser recent movies that were just like, yeah, no, I love you, Dolph, but that's bad. You know.
Gotcha.
I was going to ask, is there an actor that y'all wish y'all looked like, and would y'all be willing to start continuing?
Like be a doppelganger
after they died or something?
Man,
I mean, I'd take Bronson, but I'm sure many people wouldn't want to hang out with me because they'd be afraid I'd, you know, bite their face off. But yeah, who would that?
John Holmes.
Peter North. But no.
There you go.
Dylan DeBone. I don't know. Who would I want to be mistaken for? Randy Spears. No. Seriously, who would I?
Like
you guys
I
can
wish
go
I
ahead.
looked like Vince. I wish I looked like Vincent Price. I would do like
Vincent Price doppelganger exploitation movies.
If I could have the voice of Christopher Lee and be mistaken for Reb Brown, that would make my day.
There you go.
Very nice.
All into bitches. Well, you posed the question.
Connery. I think you could totally, like, if I was a 60s era Sean Connery, I'd be doing fake James Bond movies.
That would work out quite well.
If you have a crowdfunder, let me give you an easy 2K to make that movie.
As soon as I get that plastic surgery, I'll
well, I mean, just hire a makeup artist.
Sure.
Or maybe that could be the joke. It's like, I'm not James Bond, but I work for MI6. So that's the only thing. So I think we're all in an agreement. We're all fascinated by Bronson, always checking out obscure movies we haven't seen by him. And I'll mention a few more, but like the only thing I wish he could have done is probably a spy movie as a segue. I mean, I think he would have absolutely owned it. I think he would have been really cool. Out of his later ensemble movies that he does, I think there's a lot to recommend that doesn't get talked about enough. Like Via's Ride, I think is a pretty damn good movie where he worked with Yul Brynner and Robert Mitchum. And the only complaint I have about that is he should have played Poncho, not fucking Yul Brynner. It's like, I'm sorry, I like you, Yul, but no.
Yeah, Brynner was the bigger name.
He was the bigger name, so he had to go on the box first. But what's funny is I remember Mitchum was quoted as saying, Bronson, he's a quiet, odd type. It's like, and it seems that's just it. It's like, I think that's just it. Bronson, even those who have complained about him, is like the actress who was on Cold Sweat. I don't remember her name. I'm sorry, because that's not why I went to see this movie in this DVD pack. But it was one of those. Is like she complained about him just not talking to her. I was like, well, yeah, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here to act.
He could have been more of an introverted person, which is very possible. I mean, he could have just been more.
And I think that's just cool when.
Yeah. Well, and from everything I heard, he basically just kept to himself. I mean, like on the Magnificent Seven, he just kept to himself. That was his whole thing. He was there to do a job. I mean, if you got to know him, he was nice, but he wasn't necessarily going to put himself out there. Apparently, he was really shy.
Yeah, which is so funny because he just seems just very charismatic. So you think, oh yeah, he's getting laid tonight. You know, he has that aura about him. It's like,
well, he was also married to the same woman from like 1968 until 1990. So.
And he went, and when she was ill, I mean, I think that's just it. He commanded just respect in the public eye. It's like he's caring for his family instead of going on tour or, you know, going to every expensive party known to mankind. And I mean, hell, he got an Emmy nomination for being on a daytime program. So what does that say? You know, that's a guy who's a chameleon in a mild way, and who later, when his identity on screen shifts, it's still pretty much, again, you know what you're getting, and yet you're occasionally surprised. And I mean, like you say, a lot of his other Italian gangster movies are still worth watching. You know, Love and Bullets and Violent City are two of them. And again, as Dylan summed up, anytime he goes after, you know, a serial killer, it's always very tense and hard-boiled. It kind of gives you French Connection kind of vibes, especially the Stone Killer, which I can't forget. We almost skipped over. That
was another Weiner movie. So you worked with Weiner. Is it Michael Weiner? Is that how you pronounce it?
I thought it was
Winner.
Winner? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you worked with both those guys the most, right?
Yeah.
It's because Charles Bronson, he's a winner, man.
So you think that's because he was a loyal and like he did all those movies with his wife? You know, is it because he was loyal, or he just like working with people he knew what they were doing?
I think he really did actually see the credibility in her. And I definitely have found her, compared to say Sandra Loke and, you know, being cast in all of her hubby's, you know, Clint Eastwood's movies, it's definitely one of those. He saw the talent in her, and yes, he did want to give her some kind of employment, you know. So hey, you don't have to. I've literally have just given you a free audition, and all you have to do is say yes. You know, play my love interest.
And the fact that he worked as much as he did, I think a lot of it just came down to, as J. Lee Thompson or as Michael Winner got gigs. I mean, part of it helped the fact that they were working in franchise pictures for him. But I think it was more along the lines of, hey, I've reached the point in my career, I can kind of call my own shot. Or, you know, my buddies are making a movie. Yeah, I'm going to go do that.
Well, and as Dylan and Daniel brilliantly summed up, he basically went in reverse order. He got overseas appeal, so everyone wants to fund his movies. All investors from all over the globe want to see his picture. And like you just summed up, yes, it was a matter of he could still be choosy until he finally had to say, hey, you know, rent is overdue. I gotta, you know,
gotta work.
And I mean, I think you also have all well summed up. We can't really think of any movies where we're just like, God, that was a time suck. I'll never get back. I can't think of any movie that I absolutely want to erase from my memory where I'm just like, I did not like. Obviously, you'll have an occasional movie where you're just like, yeah, it's not my cup of tea. But I can't think of one where I'm just like, yeah, no, fuck that movie. I can't think of any one of them where I would say that deserved the Razzies for the year, or not that I agree with the Razzies.
only one
but
I
you know
can
what I mean?
I would say he has like a Predator or something like that, like a true ultra classic, you know, in there. It's a lot of doubles and triples, you know what I mean? But
that's just it. He's kind of just a liquor that keeps on giving. But yeah, like you say, is like there are some where it's like they're maybe repetitive, and you get mixed up with the other one, but not in a terrible way where you're like, oh, that's the better version of this movie. It's like, well, if it runs together, it's just because I just really like most of what I see. So my memory just failed me on that one. But like Breakout, I didn't really care for, but a lot of people really love that one, which is where he's just, again, he's a gun for hire, much like The Mechanic, and he has to do an unusual kind of helicopter prison escape, you know, with Bobby Duvall. And I think this is it. Is like, that was interesting. That was well shot. It didn't click with me, but I definitely didn't. I would never say, oh, don't avoid at all costs. Oh.
And they're all basically 90 minutes too, so you're not.
They go by so fast, even when there is no action on screen. And again, just like Cagney, he knows how to walk. He may not be on Cagney's level, but he's definitely not. I mean, again, this is where these guys who ape Bronson's career or do his similar kind of movies that are definitely in that vibe. This is like, you never get the sense that, hey, you know, I just don't want to see any of his movies. The guy just sucks. It's like, no, I know what I'm getting. And I've never met any of my pals who are action fans who haven't seen any of his movies. Like, And that says a lot for someone, because like I've seen people who had seen Eastwood, but they were mostly familiar with like his 80s and 90s movies, and it's like, okay, well, fair enough, at least you've seen some of his hits in every era versus, you know, his OG films. And it's like, yeah, it's like there's others where you're just like, oh, you are not a fan, you know. but it's like, yeah, Bronson is like, I've seen just about. And it helps that a lot of his movies, again, since they were by Canon or by MGM, a lot of them are in those, you know, nowadays, if you can't go to any Walmart or Best Buy that doesn't have like a 4 or 5 pack of his movies, you know, stapled together for $10. It's like,
yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, because my memory, maybe my earliest memory of Charles Bronson is Death Wish 2 was always like those bargain VHSs at like Kmart or something like that.
Yeah, it's part 2 through 4, and yeah.
So
and
yeah, that's true.
he was like the first bargain basement action star, you know.
well, no, that's true. Yeah, is like he was a bargain bin guy without being a direct-to-video guy. So that is cool that you bring that up. He was one of those, is like, if you didn't see him in the theater when it was all crazy and, you know, blowing up and all, then you definitely saw him, yeah, on, again, all his movies were just independent distributors who wanted to work with him, and I can't think of any that weren't by Paramount or Vestron or Lionsgate. Owned. And
I guess Liam Neeson's the closest correlation now, where it's like, you know, I'll watch any Liam Neeson movie that comes out, you know, and some like that oh, sorry. My
Bronson's calling. He wants you to stop.
He's like, hey.
Hey, stop talking about me, Pally.
You want to jack me off?
Oh my God. There's a killer in town. Your name's on it. Are you the killer? I'm coming to your house. This is Charlie Bronson signing off.
I was about to say, but you know, some Liam Neeson ones, like there was the one where he's in Mexico and stuff. Like that one was.
Oh, The Marksman.
Yeah, Marksman. That was okay.
And that was by Clint Eastwood's former collaborator. So there you go. It's like,
that makes sense, because it felt like a Clint Eastwood script from like the 80s that was floating around, or like 90s, and like they just dusted off and put Liam Neeson in it. That's funny.
Totally. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've often you look at a lot of Dolph's movies. He pretty much was always like, I want to do something else, but hey, that's not what's, you know, paying the bills. But yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah, Neeson basically, again, once he thought Taken was going to go direct to video, he was quoted as that. But it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe not, but it is what it is. I mean, he was always kind of a Harrison Ford that never really made it. He was just always stealing the show in a supporting role. So yeah, it's just like, you want to talk career reversals? Yeah, he basically, I think, yeah, Bronson just did the whole, well, it is what it is. I would rather be doing all these other movies. He was even quoted as saying, oh, the most tasteless thing I was ever in. But this is like, that didn't stop them from casting him, and he kept just sucking it up and doing the paycheck. And again, because we've talked about how he's just a nice guy, and I've never heard anyone say he was drunk on set like David Carradine, or that he didn't know his lines. And not that he had too many lines anyway. They didn't want to give him lines. They just like, we just believe everything you're saying. You got to just simply, I mean, I can't even think of a movie where he says, you're under arrest, Sonny.
No. 10 to midnight or something. I think it goes back to the Robert Bronzy thing a little bit, like, not to beat up that guy, but it's more than just looking badass and saying a line or two. You know, he does have craft going into it, and he is a good actor. And even you go back to Great Escape, where he's claustrophobic in it, or some of his early ones. So he could definitely do the performance, and he's doing the work even in those roles where they don't really, quote unquote, have.
No, that's so true, because like he is like Dolph Lundgren, especially when Lundgren gets through the Expendables, where it's like he can have just a bizarre, just kind of character quirk, and just sink into it, regardless. And you know, he's another guy who kind of went through just several different hoops. It's like, okay, I have an engineering degree, I somehow became an actor, but you know. Even people like Ridley Scott think I'm abysmal and won't cast me as Maximus' friend in Gladiator. So it's like, I think when actors have been told no so many times, eventually they also say, okay, well, I'm tired of being told no, but at the same time, I'm also not going to let that bother me. You know, I can't think of any other actors aside from some of the spoiled ones who just say, oh, well, you know, I'm going to just talk shit behind your back right now, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dolph Lundgren, I say, is actually the world's most interesting man, because he dated Grace Jones, hung out with Andy Warhol, all. He was a bouncer. He's a genius. Didn't he win like an Olympic, or he went to the Olympics too, or something like that?
He studied
I
when the
don't remember.
pentathlon because he was doing a movie about that, which was basically Rocky meets Die Hard.
I thought he was like an Olympic team or something like that, but maybe I'm.
He also studied martial arts later on, when he was doing all these
Right.
wacky, Yakuza-based movies. But I think that's just it. I think he also realizes, like, okay, I don't want to play a He-Man role, but that's all everyone sees me as. So I gotta just cut the slack, and at least I can do. But like Bronson, he kind of just does all this stuff that's overseas, and he was more of a just everyone only just saw him as Mr. Drago in Rocky IV, and it didn't help that his agent was kind of an idiot, kind of like Jeff Speakman's. There's another B movie callback, and basically his movies were just seen overseas in like Bulgaria and Japan, but in the States we only saw them like premiere on TV or the home video market.
That's
So
interesting.
I think
Well, Leonard just kept putting in the work, and eventually kind of. It's almost a little bit like Bruce Campbell. It's like he does almost so much shit that he becomes A-list, and he's like in the.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good contrast because it's like everyone is gonna check out Bruce Campbell because like even if you don't know him even if you have somehow not been introduced to Evil Dead, you know him. You've just seen him somewhere. You've seen him do a voice cameo. You've seen Burn Notice. You've seen know who everyone knows who Bruce Campbell is, and everyone. I mean, look at William Shatner. He's done nothing but garbage this last like 10 years, and that's okay. We're gonna still scoop it up if it's at the $2 aisle because it's like, it's just a bigger than life just persona that is like, well, I mean, what the hell? I mean, just check it out because this persona just refuses to die. Like it's just you can't channel it out, and that's just so funny you bring up Campbell because he is kind of. He's like his own unpredictable audience. Like you would not be surprised if there was a forum dedicated to his upcoming releases.
Yeah, I mean,
there is. I'm sure
the fact
There is?
the fact that
Okay.
Sure, yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah.
I mean, the
Just
fact that
making
Bronson's
sure.
legacy at the end of his career was so major that he could die and some other person that looks like him could just keep on going with.
I think he was before
like-
Avril Lavigne. You never.
Yeah, I mean,
heard that
pretty much
rumor
just
that
down
she
to
got killed
Charles
and
Bronson
replaced.
and Bruce Lee. They can have
Yeah,
that.
all the Bruce, the clones of Bruce, yeah.
Yep.
That's a good analogy too.
Oh man.
So the question it has, and it seems like the inevitable with all we've been talking about it. We talked about a lot of the films that we like from him.
We've been talking about
If
something.
you were-
I had no idea.
If you were pressed to say your favorite Bronson flick, what would it be?
Oh. Can we go by era?
I'm going with Forbidden Subjects, man. That's
Nice.
That's
Alright,
a
we're- We're gonna assemble a Bronson marathon. So we're gonna kick things off with Kinjite, the Forbidden Subjects.
Man, okay. Well, shit. The Valachi Papers.
Nice.
Because you've never seen a real life true crime movie like this, and it's just playing an informant who goes for. This is very very deep for him because like he's not the same guy as it was at the movie, and in many ways, yes, that's the movie doing its work, but he does do other small things that make you realize like, okay, well, he is a talented actor. It's just he uses atypical methods that you're not used to seeing, much like, I mean, I think there's still that prejudice, much like, some people don't often, they just call Clint Eastwood an actor. And it's like, yeah, but he's not just an actor. He's an action star and a director, so it's just like, it's kind of like just with, I mean, you were mentioning slashers earlier. It's like, there's a lot of people who kind of, I don't know, because both action and horror don't seem to be popular with certain crowds. They just seem to not want to label someone a certain thing. I don't know. I don't get it. But it's just like, he's a man of many faces, literally, even though he wears mainly just one face. But it's just, he's another guy who, again, is just full of atypical gestures and everything. And I think this movie complements that. But yeah, sorry, I've talked too much. Yeah, you guys go ahead.
Oh, you, Daniel.
I'm kind of torn. I I'm a fan. I love the mechanic, but I love the evil that men do. Seeing that guy's balls get electrocuted.
Mhm.
I'm a sucker for the.
Well, you said you're doing a
older
marathon, so how many are allowed?
80s.
Let's go one with each.
Ooh, okay. Well, shit. Put Magnificent Seven on there. He dies an epic death after talking some serious shit to that main bandit. So,
That's a nice one.
and you don't feel
Yeah,
like
it's-
he's a wimp compared to the other guys, and that says a lot when they got like a higher body count than him. But I mean, like he's just. He could tell me the other day, like, I'm an actual cowboy, and I would believe it. You know,
Exactly. He had that presence about
he
him.
may not have the belt, but he might as well have. It's just,
So what's your favorite? Yeah.
As for me, I'm going to go with one that we actually haven't talked about yet. 1975,
Versus.
Which one?
Hard Times with Walter
Oh,
Hill,
yeah. the boxer.
oh, I'm an idiot. How did I not mention that?
where Bronson is the bare knuckle boxer in Depression era New Orleans. I love that movie. And if
And
you want to talk
literally-
about, the very embodiment of stoic man of few words Bronson that nevertheless is just so effortlessly cool, that's Hard Times in a nutshell.
Who
Playing opposite James Coburn, he was great.
James
right, and
Coburn,
they did
Strother
Death Hunt,
Martin,
right? They did
What's
Death
that?
Hunt together. They both did Death Hunt together. Him and James Coburn, or is that something
Believe
else?
so, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they did. Good
So
call.
they have a little duology too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Death Hunt.
But I mean, Death Hunt is interesting because that's basically a '70s movie that was made in the early '80s, and Hard Times is basically it's just like it's a Prohibition era set movie, and it's just cool because this just is what Walter Hill basically remakes just subtly throughout the rest of his career. Just
Yep.
you know,
And it's one of the few films from the 70s that's not a Hong Kong film where the fights still 100% hold up to today's viewing.
and I've seen many action stars who said like that was their introduction, like Andrew Divoff of all people, the Jen from Wishmaster, he was originally going to be a stuntman.
Mhm.
He said he just wanted to be an actor who was just tough and everything because he saw Charles Bronson in that movie. But I've seen even just random, just tough guys just spout it out, even filmmakers who said they were inspired by old 70s movie.
Just so
Dude.
good.
It really is. And you feel dramatically rewarded as opposed to it being a Rocky knockoff where you're just bored in between all the fight scenes and workout sessions. You know what I mean? Where you do actually want to see it unfold and you don't feel like he's invincible. And you kind of he does utter good, just small like body language that lets you know he might have broken on, a rib or he's out of wind just talking. He just needs a bite to eat before he crashes,
Mm-hmm.
Man, we got some good picks tonight. So, because again, Bronson's a winner.
That's a good marathon we just picked right there.
I think so. So we got Kinjite, the Forbidden Subject.
to start off.
What about Machine Gun Kelly? You want to
shifted
just
well, you shifted your pick to Magnificent Seven. Daniel, you went with The Evil That Men Do
Yep, and the mechanic.
and The Mechanic.
wait?
and then Hard Times.
He gets 2 picks. I don't know.
Yeah, I get 2 picks.
Well, to be fair, I think
Motherfucker.
Magnificent Seven, that's a longer film, right? So
And Magnificent Seven's like 3 hours. So,
I'm the
yeah.
fucking host here, so I know.
There you go. Your rules.
I'm going just watch the fan edit of the Magnificent Seven with just his scenes in the final shootout, and then put in Guns for San Sebastian, where he gets to play opposite hero Anthony Quinn.
There you go.
Okay.
I like it.
Nice.
That movie is
If I had a
amazing.
second choice, I put in 10 to Midnight. I like that one a lot.
Yes, we got to have one of the slashers in here. So again, we got something for everyone. We got all these just shoot 'em ups and hard-boiled thrillers. So it's like, yeah, I mean,
And
think
it goes to show how deep his filmography is, because I think for the casual viewer, you say Bronson, they immediately think Death Wish. And while, yeah, we like the Death Wish movies from the sound of it, they don't top our lists.
That's true. That's a good
no,
point.
that's so true. Because yeah, it's like just because you're well known for that. I mean, I'm kind of that way with some of the superhero actors. It's like, okay, well, I liked them in that, or maybe I didn't like them as that role because it just was an ensemble piece. They were just a cameo, and I mean, that's kind of where we were with most of the Planet Hollywood guys. Is like once Stallone gets to the 90s, it's game over. Arnold, there's a few gems, but it's still diamond in the rough. And Bruce, it's kind of more just ensemble. The ensemble movies are great. The standalone movies kind of stupid, And so it is interesting how an actor who basically again, it's just like you say, enough difference that you really can't lose. You won't regret, and you might have some people who find some of his movies boring, so you just got to also just pick a good bunch of film buffs to sit down with.
Yeah, well, a lot of people look down on the Cannon years, but especially critics, I think, at the time. But if you think about it, you made me realize that's a good point, is he was still relevant into his 60s, 70s, still making these things. So
totally. I mean, even the movies he has cameos in, you're not going to fault him for, because it was just kind of earlier in his career, and it was just, he avoids doing too many of those, just like walk on stage for literally a minute of screen time. Like the most I can think is probably Battle of the Bulge, but I mean, that movie was just kind of cashing in on all the other, all-star cast, World War II epics. So, I mean, yeah, and like you mentioned, even some of his obscure TV shows or appearances you're going to want to check out. Would any of you had seen? Now, let me riddle you this. I mean, how many of his other TV guest spots before we wrap this up have you seen?
Well, Twilight Zone, definitely.
Yes, and then, they should have made that a standalone movie. That would have been amazing.
That would have been good. And then, yeah, other than that, it's mostly just some episodes of Man with the Camera.
Okay, I think you would like his episode of Have Gun Will Travel, as well as Combat and The Fugitive.
Nice.
I think.
Yeah,
well, and I just suggest those because those are also easy to come by. Like, there's always, like you say, some streaming platform or easy to buy DVD set that has them. So it's like, yeah, it's just interesting because
definitely patterned Leonardo DiCaprio's career off of Bronson's, or I guess it was Burt Reynolds too, and there's probably a few guys like that. But
pretty much any of the 70s cool cats, Lee Van Cleef, all those guys basically were just fair game.
Right. You get a lot of Western TV, and then they went to Italy, and then did stuff out there, and then
Totally. So, thank you all, gents. This was one hell of a time.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
Definitely hell of a lot of fun.
By the way, I do like that. Before we ended, I do like the fact that he did audition for Superman for 1978 Superman. Could you imagine Bronson as Superman?
Oh hell, he was this close to being cast as Conan.
That is amazing. Oh man, I want to see that movie. I just want to see. Anyway, yes, this has been freaking awesome.
The audition or screen test? If there's a screen test of him in a Superman outfit, that would be gold.
Up and away.
For the sweaty armpits, like the Christopher Reeve test, He's like, I'm not going to shave my mustache.
I know. Yeah, I want a mustachioed Superman. Fuck yeah, dude.
1,000%. Okay, so
hey, let's call up Robert Bronzy. Let's write that, man. Let's do that.
Totally.
Robert Bronzy Superman.
1,000%. Thank you all for being here.
We'll return after these messages.
JRS Podcast is proud to promote AutoCorrect, an independent film company with experienced industry professionals who can serve all your film industry needs. They include self-tapes, voice actor recordings, demo reel editing, script revisions, headshots, and much more. They're Actor Correct at your request. Book them on Instagram.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds?
Nick
Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
did
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
Greetings, friends. My name is Dean Legero, and I'm the host of the 3324 podcast. I invite you to join me and my lifelong friend Eric Kuber to come with us as we discuss the music and movies that shaped our life. Each week, we'll pick an album or film that we really connect to, and not only give you some great info and trivia, but also discuss, debate, and celebrate what it means to us and the journey it took us on. We also look forward to hearing from you and giving us some of your picks for us to check out and discuss. I think it'll be a really fun experience, so come along with us for the ride. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider and at 3324.buzzsprout.com. Thanks for your time, and welcome to the 3324 family.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy. At eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a